Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
All right. Welcome again, gentlemen, to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. My name is Scott McKay, at Scott McKay on Twitter and on Parler, Real Scott McKay on Instagram, Scott McKay on YouTube as well. You can find us on the web at mountaintoppodcast.com. And I do still, as always, invite you guys who haven't yet to join us on the thriving Facebook group, which is at the Mountaintop Summit on Facebook. Today, I'm thrilled to let you guys know that I've invited back a returning guest, and she's a sex therapist and tantra practitioner, the author of Legendary Lover. She's fun and personable, and her pronouns are definitely she and her. She is, of course, Helena Nista. Helena, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah, it's our pleasure, literally. We love everything you have to talk to us about in terms of being better sexual practitioners in our own right in the bedroom and even outside of the bedroom, because when we're talking about sex with women, that's not something we save for the bedroom, is it? We kind of have to do what I've affectionately called mental foreplay all day. That's a big part of it for women also, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great concept.
Yeah.
I love that you lead with that.
Well, I did so on purpose because, for guys from a very early age, talking about sex with women is kind of like something we're told just not to do, especially nowadays when we're all grown up and the hashtag Me Too movement has happened and we're trooped off to sexual harassment training in the workplace. It sounds a lot to men these days like, okay, here's a woman, don't talk to her. Otherwise, you'll get fired, you're going to jail, something bad is going to happen. So for a lot of men, we're just at a total loss in terms of how to talk to women about sex, let alone when to start doing it in the process. I mean, most of us have enough presence of mind not just to go up to a woman and say, hey, you want to have sex? Or worse, But, in all seriousness, women, I don't know, Helena. I've noticed that women have a very natural facility when talking about sex. They can talk about what they read in the Cosmopolitan magazine, talk about their periods, talk about pregnancies. There seems to be more of a surround in terms of what women have to talk about with each other about sex, not just having sex or being sexual. And therefore, it seems like women are typically, not everybody's the same. Not everybody's created equal in this regard, of course. But a lot of women seem like they can talk about sex as just a matter-of-fact subject. Meanwhile, men, on the whole, overall, freak out about it. I mean, if we're talking about sex, we better have full, enthusiastic consent from a woman, and it better be almost time to get down and dirty, or else we're not even sure about opening our mouth about the subject. What's going on there? What's that dynamic for women and talking about sex that seems so natural compared to how men seem to be so afraid of it?
It seems to really come down to the upbringing and how we see men in society as the strong, macho, types who don't talk about the fluffy feelings, don't have the sort of intensity of feelings that women do, and don't, and when it comes to the bedroom, that they just know what to do. And so they don't need to ask the woman, it seems that we consider a measure of a good lover how he just takes the woman there and gives her a great experience and doesn't ask questions, because asking her questions might indicate he doesn't know something. This is a very flawed approach on all of these fronts, because men have feelings. Men feel deeply and intensely. And men, just like women, might not know always exactly what to do in the bedroom, especially with a new lover or someone you've been with, but you haven't had these conversations with, or you maybe, you might be lucky and maybe you found her happy pleasure spots in all the erogenous zones and all her favorite ways to touch her and give her orgasms. But for many people, that's not the case. For many people, they never had these conversations. And so they kind of sort of are looking blindly for what is possible for their partner, for their lover sexually. And there are really better ways to do that. But we need to understand that it's okay to talk about these things, that it doesn't, when you ask your partner what she wants in the bedroom, it doesn't mean that you are unknowledgeable or unskilled, or etc. It's not a reflection on any sexual, I guess, weakness on your part. It just means that you want to learn about her particular preferences, which will make you a great lover to her.
Well, I'll tell you what, any guy with any sexual experience, more than one partner, I would say, has already figured out that not all women enjoy the same kind of pleasure, and not everything is pleasurable to every woman. So it's a sign of being a strong lover, being a lover with good skills, to openly talk to a woman about what she finds pleasurable, what kind of sex she likes. And yet, a lot of guys don't even know how to even get to that position, because they don't even know how to dance the dance of seduction, as it were, in a way that turns a friendly relationship, or a relationship where we're getting to know each other, into something that's imminently sexual. So guys struggle even from the beginning on that, let alone when they get to the bedroom. So it seems like there's a meta level problem going on there, isn't there?
Well, exactly. But, like you mentioned, men are realizing this, and they are learning this simple fact that every single woman is unique in the bedroom, and she has different preferences than all his previous lovers. But, so this seems to be like a common sense thing that we notice as soon as we start having more experience sexually. But still, there is this kind of block about actually asking your partner, especially a new partner in the bedroom, what would you like? What can I do for you? How can I make this experience more amazing for you? How can I give you more pleasure? What do you enjoy? It just doesn't seem very common to ask these questions in the bedroom. So that stigma around, don't seem like someone who doesn't know what to do in the bedroom, that is still alive, unfortunately.
Yeah, it seems like every John Hughes movie you've ever seen with Anthony Michael Hall, like 16 Candles. It's like, all right, go get her underwear and come back and show it to us. And he's like, oh yeah, I got this. I've already figured it out. I mean, I'm 13 years old and I'm nerdy, but hey, I've got it. Yeah, a lot of guys really do have that macho tendency, such that if I ask for help, sexual or otherwise, I'm going to look weak. Therefore, it's much better to actually be clueless than to open up your mouth or try to do something and remove all doubt. And I know guys who are in their 40s, 50s, possibly even older, who have a fear of success when it comes to actually finding themselves in a sexual situation with a woman, because they're scared of what's going to happen once they get naked together. He's afraid he's going to be completely humiliated because he doesn't know what to do, or because his performance isn't going to be there, or he won't be able to get an erection, or he'll have an orgasm too quickly, or this whole myriad of ways where guys psychologically dupe themselves into thinking, man, this is going to be more trouble than it is going to be pleasurable if I ever get in a sexual situation with a woman. Meanwhile, the women are completely oblivious to this. They're like, what's this guy's problem, right? They don't really see it the way we do.
Exactly. We don't seem to have enough conversation and communication about sex. And so when we get into the bedroom, there's all sorts of different thoughts or anxieties or fears or inhibitions or ideas about how things should go, etc., that aren't communicated. And that can lead to really poor sexual experiences.
Yes. And also a lot of times guys get into the bedroom. All right, let's be real here. We're talking about the bedroom as a euphemism for when things get sexual. Obviously, you can bounce her around the kitchen or the backseat of the car or whatever you want to do. You can get creative. But when it comes time to be sexual with a woman, a lot of guys are very much about rushing things. We can say, oh yeah, we're turned on by women's lingerie, but then we unwrap that present like it's Christmas time and we're 6 years old, and that's that's not very nice for women.
Exactly.
And then we're focusing on our own pleasure. We just want to get off. And I'll tell you what, here's a major hint I want to drop on guys right here, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me. Okay. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Focus on her pleasure, not your own. And don't worry, she'll get around to pleasuring you. And plus, that's a great way to overcome performance anxiety and even, premature ejaculation. I mean, you blow your top a little early. Stop worrying about it. Stop gripping about these things that have happened or are happening, because you'll just increase the pressure on yourself, and that'll make things a lot less fun for you and make her feel less comfortable with the whole situation. But if you focus on her pleasure, it's amazing how when you do that, suddenly you get an erection, or suddenly you're ready for another round quicker than you thought. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's actually great advice. But there are a few things that can stand in the way of implementing it. One is the influence of porn and the image of, the good, exciting sex that porn presents. Quick, furious, fast sex full of friction looks great on the computer screen, but doesn't work so great in the bedroom. But, when we watch these scenes again and again and again, they create this kind of expectation that great sex is the fast, furious sex full of friction, excitement, etc. And that can lead to a very fast conclusion or to a very fast ejaculation, etc. And then it doesn't really give both partners the most amazing experience. Another thing is that a lot of men don't have the ability or haven't cultivated the ability to actually contain their arousal and contain their sexual energy, meaning when they get aroused, it really seems almost physically impossible to hold that arousal and to just be with it and to be aroused for a prolonged period of time while you are pleasuring her and concentrating on her and taking care of her experience. So there is this kind of urgency, almost physical urgency in the body to get on with it, to get to the penetration and to release that pressure.
Kind of what I call hungry chihuahua syndrome.
That's right.
That was a different giggle than I've heard from you before. All right. So listen, let's talk about porn for a second since you brought it up. I don't know what porn you've been watching, Helena, but most of what I've seen, and maybe it's just my own personal taste, isn't about bending her over, banging and coming quickly. I mean, they got to shoot a 30, 40-minute scene here. There's some talk at the beginning, then there's some oral, and then they do it from every different position before the money shot at the end. And even after the money shot, sometimes there's some afterglow. Maybe it's just the porn I've seen. Maybe I'm just naive. But it seems to me that if every porn movie clip was shot in real life perspective of most guys being a two-pump chump, we'd have a bunch of trailers and no real actual movies to watch. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel like that's why there's a whole crew of people working on each porn movie. And actually something that I learned, that I read somewhere and I found quite interesting, is that on any porn set, the most time is spent waiting for the male character to get his erection back. So it's not really the full experience that we're seeing. We're seeing a very carefully designed scene where the main character may have needed to actually come a few times or lost his erection at some point or whatever. It's not the real experience.
Well, I think that's true for sure. I have also heard that what separates the male porn actors who are successful and actually get to be performers from the wannabes is the ability to get a raging erection with other people standing around watching, because it's no mean feat, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, but I think there's really no doubt that if guys have only experienced human sexuality through pornography and haven't taken the time to learn the skills or dive into what's really the reality of sexuality, no pun intended, they're going to be leaving a lot on the table when they're actually in a sexual experience with a woman. I mean, no matter how much porn you watch, you're only seeing and you're only listening. You're not going to be tasting. You're not going to be actually physically touching. You're not going to have your olfactory sense. So 3 out of the 5 senses that are all important sexually, I would say, are just not there. So you're going to have to relax and say, you know what, there's more to be experienced here now that I'm not watching it on video. I'm actually interacting with a real human being.
And, in my own experience, when I watch porn, and I do it mainly for research purposes, of course. when I watch porn, I really don't see the characters doing things that would make me orgasmic, that would make me come. And because there is such, I guess, focus on creating this scene that's full of action and excitement so that it visually looks really, really appealing to the viewer. And so things like really slowing down or really teasing or really exploring the body slowly, awakening all of the senses, these kind of things really wake up and activate the entire body and the nervous system and all those pleasure centers in the body. And obviously, I am different than other women, but I've worked with enough women to understand that women have these different needs when it comes to really fully activating their orgasmic potential, and still the porn style sex doesn't seem to be doing that for a woman.
Right, exactly. Yet women seem to be watching porn because they're figuring out how to shave themselves and how to say the things that porn actresses say and do the things that porn actresses do. So there's some influence even on women with the porn industry. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, maybe what we've got is this twisted situation where women think they have to act more like porn actresses to please their guy. Meanwhile, the fact that guys are immersed in so much porn is diminishing the sexual experience for the very women who are trying to please them by acting like porn actresses. What a tangled web we weave, right?
Exactly. And it is really twisted because of porn, women figure that they need to have sex the way that men do, because most of porn was shot for the male viewers. And so these women who on the screen get aroused very quickly or are squirting all over the room, really quickly, or are touched in a particular sort of harsh and rough ways. And again, not every single porn clip is like that, but that's pretty much what I've seen majority of times. When I watch these scenes, I really think, oh my God, I would never want anybody touch my vulva and my vagina in this way, so rough, so quickly, etc. But that seems to work for the actresses on the set.
Maybe that's why they're the porn actresses.
Exactly.
I guess.
And it doesn't really work so well in real life.
Now, in real life, let's get back to real life.
Yes.
There are different kinds of orgasms and different ways to give them. Could you please share with us different kinds of orgasms women are capable of having, how likely it is that a woman would enjoy that kind of orgasm, and how objectively do we talk to them about the kind of orgasms they'd like to have? Because a lot of that's going to come down to what are their fantasies and perhaps saying something that might feel a little embarrassing, like we're going to judge them for it. How can we get around all that and do that correctly?
Well, so first of all, the different types of orgasm. There are different even ways to categorize them, but broadly speaking, there are the external orgasms. Basically, the clitoral orgasm, when you rub her clitoris, when you give her oral sex and lick and suck on her clitoris and stimulate her clitoris, it will, in many cases, lead to a clitoral orgasm. But she's also capable of the internal orgasm. So they come from the internal stimulation, stimulating her G-spot, either with your fingers, with a dildo, with your penis in different sexual positions, stimulating her cervix, stimulating her A-spot and her P-spot and different parts of her internal vaginal wall. And then there's also the kind of much broader view on orgasms, where orgasms can actually come from different parts of the body. Like I'm particularly fond of breast orgasms. You can actually stimulate her breasts to orgasm, or pretty much any other part of her body that is sensitive enough to experience pleasure. But this is kind of taking a broader view on orgasm, because most women have just not developed that kind of sensitivity in their bodies, because purely they have no idea that they can experience these different kinds of orgasms. So I'm going to keep it more kind of mainstream here with those more genitally based orgasms, because those are the ones that typically women can experience, either from clitoral stimulation or from internal stimulation through penetration, through intercourse, or manual stimulation.
Yeah, no doubt. For a 30 or 40-minute podcast, we don't have to go into an absolute clinical illustration of every one of these different types of orgasms. But I do think it would be helpful, Helena, to talk to guys about what those actual kinds of orgasms are that you just mentioned. You mentioned the G-spot and stimulating her cervix, and the P-spot. I've also heard of the deep spot. that's intimidating to a lot of guys because it sounds like I have to have a 10-inch schlonger to be able to reach it. So I think, a little bit of clarification would be helpful to these guys just to know where you're talking about anatomically.
Okay. So the G-spot, we start with the G-spot, that's located on the upper wall of her vagina near towards her belly. And G-spot usually isn't very deep. Usually it's about maybe 2 knuckles in if you insert your finger. And you feel the G-spot because the texture will feel a bit different than the rest of the vaginal walls. Like vaginal walls are typically quite...
That's not necessarily true, though.
No, because every woman is different.
Right. Some women have kind of like a ridged G-spot. It almost feels like a ribbed condom. And some women are very smooth up there. Does that mean the woman doesn't have a G-spot, or does it just feel different?
Everyone has a G-spot.
Or excuse me, I want to make sure I'm politically correct. Every human being with a vagina has a G-spot.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. But if they're a guy and they have a vagina, I'm not messing with them. Just for the record. Go ahead.
And that, the G-spot will typically swell up with fluid and become kind of it's a spongy tissue that will swell up with the fluid when she's aroused. So then you'll be able to feel it more strongly. And then when you go a bit deeper behind the G-spot, sort of still on that upper wall of her vagina near the cervix, you'll find the A-spot. And that's a really yummy area to stimulate. So you can stimulate it with a finger, with a toy, with a penis as well. There are different positions to sort of play with, but here I would just kind of work with the woman and see what positions work best for her. But I guess for the sake of precision, fingers are actually really good for stimulating the A spot. And these spots are a bit different for different women. So it's more about exploration here, not about getting an exact map and mapping out her vagina to every millimeter.
You kind of can't, because every woman's body is different inside. Just like our male bodies tend to be different on the outside. Women's bodies down there can certainly be very different on the outside, which any guy who's ever watched some porn has figured out already. But they're also anatomically different on the inside. I mean, some women have very shallow cervixes, and some women have their cervix a lot deeper in there. Sometimes that's affected by childbirth too, isn't it?
Exactly. So these things are different. You're absolutely right. But, just knowing that there is such a thing as an A spot and that you can find it and give her amazing pleasure by stimulating it, that is a valuable piece of information, I think.
Now, cervixes are tricky because some women find it very painful to have their cervix messed with, and other women just blast through the roof when you stimulate their cervix.
Absolutely. Especially the women that have quite short vaginal canals, for whom the cervix is not that deep. For those women, they in many cases have experienced a lot of sort of mechanical sex where the head of the penis was hitting the cervix, and so over the years it either became numb or very painful to touch, or etc. And the cervix might have lost its ability to be orgasmic. Any woman can actually heal that, and any woman can reclaim the sensitivity in her cervix and the pleasure potential and orgasmic potential of her cervix. That might be something that she needs to do, but the man can help her with being very loving, gentle, and caring with her cervix. But definitely cervix is, like, to me, I actually call the cervical orgasms the holy grail of all orgasms, because in my experience, they are the most amazing, mind-blowing source of an orgasm. When a woman has a cervical orgasm, it feels like these oceans of pleasure are just flowing through her entire body. It feels like a trance-like state that literally ripples through her entire system. So that's why it's really worth looking into her cervix and into how to best stimulate her cervix, how to give her cervical pleasure and cervical orgasms, because they are truly amazing. But also with the sensitivity of realizing that her cervix might be either numb, or she might be disconnected from her cervix, or it might be painful to touch depending on how it was treated previously. And so there might be some, work that needs to be done before she can experience these waves of orgasmic cervical pleasure.
There's a really bad joke here about being at her cervix that I'm not going to make. Just wanted to share that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I've noticed that the deep spot is when you hit her cervix and go right past it. And if you do that just right in combination with her cervix, it just absolutely drives a lot of women insane in a good way.
Yeah.
That's what I would say is the Holy Grail. I mean, yes, I agree with you that a lot of women love having cervical orgasms if you can somehow hit that deep spot at the same time. And a lot of these spots, you've already noted this, but a lot of these spots are found by experimenting while penetrating her, like changing your position and, going upward or downward. And that's not only okay, it's something we should be doing. And a lot of guys just lack the creativity. They just get on top and start pounding. And, that kind of probing around inside, as silly as it sounds to put it that way, a lot of things sound goofy and corny when we're talking about sex until we're actually doing it. I mean, I want to acknowledge that. But when you're actually probing around in there, you're going to hear a responsive woman, hopefully she is responsive, tell you, oh, right there, that's good. That's good. And guys hear that in porn sometimes and think the woman's acting. But in real life, a woman will give you that kind of feedback. And what I've noticed, and I'm sure, you're an expert on these things, Helena, you noticed this too, you know this for a fact. But just in case any guys aren't particularly sexually experienced, when something feels good for you as a guy, like, oh man, that feels really good, chances are, through the miracle of creation, it will for her too. Not always, but it's amazing when you feel like you've hit a really sweet spot in there, she'll often gasp and go, oh my God, right there. And you're like, oh yeah, this is going to make me blow my top right here. That's a fact of nature. And I think that is generally universal. And it's interesting because as different as male and female anatomy can be, and as different as women are in terms of how they like their orgasms and how they like to be pleasured, it seems to me that's a truth that's almost universal. When it feels good for you, it feels good for her. But then again, not every angle and every position feels the same way when we're having sex with any particular woman. So it kind of only proves how women's anatomies really are different and how they really have a lot to do with how pleasurable sex is in general. Kind of amazing.
Exactly. But I don't think it's just the anatomy and that anatomical sort of details. I think it's more that when you're in such intimate embrace with someone, it almost feels like your nervous systems are connected. And when she's experiencing deep pleasure, that energy will have a flow-on effect on your nervous system, and you will be experiencing her ecstatic arousal and her energy and her pleasure. And she will be experiencing yours. Like to me, like personally, something that is extremely arousing, gives me a lot of pleasure, is to actually see, hear, and feel my partner in pleasure, my lover in pleasure.
Oh, I think men feel the same way.
Yeah. It's like when when they make that moan, or, that when their body just moves in a particular way, or they let out that, sigh in a particular way that just tells you, oh my God, they are in so much pleasure. Your whole body will react to that. Your nervous system will respond to that, giving you an increased level of pleasure.
Oh, I think the whole idea of full body orgasms, which we hear about a lot in sexual context, isn't only for women.
No, it's not.
And I think where a lot of guys miss out is they're not thinking about that connection. I mean, deeply kissing a woman while you're inside of her is a pleasure not to be missed, and it pleasures her exponentially. I mean, kissing on her neck, whispering in her ear, pulling her hair, spanking her, all those things are enhancements to just the presence of being sexual together. So talking to each other, looking in each other's eyes, you're breathing, scooping her up underneath her shoulder blades and letting her wrap her legs around you as you hold her by the hip, all of those things. Sorry, I'm getting a little exciting here, I know, but the point is that there's a whole lot more to sexual intercourse between a man and a woman than simply a penis going inside a vagina. And I think guys know that instinctively, but it's like, well, what do I do? How does this work? And a couple things I want to bring up that I think are a little bit more advanced in this regard, I'd love to hear your take on this, is if you really feel passion towards a woman, if you're really just hot for her, you just adore her, you can gather up all that passion in your heart and soul and almost inject it through your penis into her. That feeling. It's like a feeling-gasm. And women will gasp.
Exactly.
Like it's real. It's a thing. There's something to it. And guys, try that. I mean, if you're in a sexual relationship with a woman and you just really adore her, just gather up everything you have in your entire being that just has passion, sexual, positive concern, love, whatever, and imagine just injecting it through your loins into your woman while you're having sex with her and watch her react. It's like, whoa, that's like supernatural, yet it's really a thing, you know?
What you're talking about is actually very tantric. That kind of circle of energy that is created by polarity between them, where the energy is flowing from his penis into her vagina and then up to her heart, and from her heart to his, and then from his heart back to his penis. So that energy is circulating naturally because of the energetic polarity between male and female bodies. But when we add conscious intention to that energy, and when we actually send love, passion, desire, caring, nurturing, and all that passion through, together with that energy through the penis and into her body, she will feel that and she will respond to that.
Yes. The other thing is, I would swear on my life, some women have electrically charged vaginal canals. Not all of them. Maybe all of them have the capacity for it. But there are times when you're making love to a woman and you would almost swear she's got electrical circuits going on in there. I mean, it feels almost like electrical impulse in there. And that is really amazing.
Yeah. I believe all women have that capacity. Just many women have shut down their nerve endings and their energetic potential, orgasmic and sexual potential, because of inhibitions, past wounding, or ideas about sex, etc.
Yeah, but I just think women's genitalia inside welcomes a male penis in ways that are beyond human comprehension. I mean, this goes beyond Kegels, for example. I mean, that's nice and all. But this is something almost supernatural like that. Yeah. Before we end the show, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't, in fact, cover how guys can transition to talking to women about the desire to be sexual with them. And I'm going to do so by presenting an idea to you and having you tweak it and add your opinions to it. Mm-hmm. I've noticed most guys are just absolute wimps when it comes to talking to women about sex. They're so afraid of being rejected, and they lack understanding of female sexuality so much that they can indeed be out with her. They can be looking into each other's eyes. They can be flirting, talking, and she can be giggling and having very much a sexual connection. In other words, there's masculine, feminine polarity going. And guys, before you start throwing sticks and stones at me, there's other podcast episodes where we cover how to do that part of it. Rome isn't built in a day, so we can't cover everything on one show. But specifically, I think most guys instinctively sense when it's time to mention sex to a woman, or even if you're in your dark apartment alone with her, you've watched the movie, you've kissed her, and you want to move to the bedroom. You want to move to where we're getting sexual. And a lot of guys have criticized what I'm about to tell you by saying, dude, you're both mammals. Don't say anything. Just start taking each other's clothes off. Shut up. And I'm thinking to myself, but there's so much that's missed out in terms of the communication and that mental foreplay when things are left unverbalized. And what I believe is we should present the woman with an idea of giving her the kind of orgasms, she deserves as a woman. And just to throw it out on the table, because there's something masculine and bold about that. Not when you first meet her, like, hey, nice shoes, let's fuck. Not in some ham-fisted, immature way, but you're looking in each other's eyes, you're flirting. That moment is there and it's delicious. And I would say, when you bring up sex, the golden rule is to focus on her pleasure. Focus on how terrific this is going to be for her, not for yourself. In other words, let me give you a very objective example. You're kissing, you're alone together and at your place or hers, and you say, I would love to watch you suck my cock. That's a loser. Don't do that. Okay. Because that's all about you and what she's going to do for you. I mean, it may work. I mean, she may fall to her knees and unzip you right there because she's worked up. And, you know, good on you if that's the way it works. But there's a better way. And that better way is, I would love to watch you have orgasms. Or when was the last time a real man gave you the kind of orgasm you know you deserve? You know, the sheet ripping, toe curling kind. And look her in the eye. Don't shy away. And just watch her explode with anticipation and passion. But again, it's got to be the right time. But what do you think about that? You think focusing on her and the kind of pleasure she's about to have is the way to go?
I really love that approach because so many guys don't do that. And so many guys are so, you know, in such a sort of need of a sexual release.
Oh, we're idiots. Oh my gosh. We don't understand how women respond powerfully to our lead and how amazing that is. I mean, it's like not knowing how to drive a car with a stick shift versus gaining mastery over the control of a Grand Prix race car. I mean, that's the difference in how it makes us feel if we as guys would just open up and let that skill happen for us. You know,
exactly. You know, and I definitely believe that sex, you know, is a two-way street. It's, I love how you encourage men to just think about her pleasure, but, you know, I do believe that it's about both people and it's about his pleasure as well. However, the mistake so many men are making is focusing on his own pleasure without giving her pleasure a lot of thought. And so this can be a really balanced approach when you actually start the sexual connection by talking about her pleasure and her orgasm. So I love that you brought it up. And I also believe that a woman who is well fucked and well looked after sexually by her man, she will respond and she will reciprocate and she will be more than happy to suck your cock and to take care of you in any way that you desire because she feels that she was really given to generously by you.
Oh, I've seen women with these hardcore alpha personalities turn into doe-eyed sex kittens when you take care of them sexually like that without being demanding. And the desire, the surrender, their absolute willingness to pleasure their man under those circumstances is magical to behold. And I really think it's something that a lot of guys have never lifted the veil enough to see because they're like, how can I get this chick to suck my cock? And, you know, they're very boorish in the bedroom. And yet there's this entire world there for the taking, literally, if guys would start understanding that women respond powerfully to our sexual lead. And I agree with you, Helena. I believe these guys would be amazed to find out how excited a woman is to pleasure them once they've taken that lead in pleasuring them first. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Her name is Helena Nista. She's originally from Eastern Europe. She now resides in Australia. And you can find out more about her by going to a special link that I've set up for you at mountaintoppodcast.com/Helena, Helena. And she has a program there for you called Tantric Mastery for Men. And when you go to that link, you'll be able to find out more about it. And we always enjoy having you on the show, Helena, and you did not disappoint us once again today. Thank you so much for dropping by and giving us a message we will all benefit from hearing. And you know what? I think the women in our lives will benefit even more from it. So thanks again.
No problem. My absolute pleasure.
All right, guys, take a deep breath. And if you don't need a cold shower yet, please take the time to go over and visit mountaintoppodcast.com. Say hello to our sponsors, Origin Maine, Heroes Soap, and Keyport. They all have special deals for you going on as a listener. So get you some. You can always use the coupon code Mountain10 with each of our sponsors. And if you have not talked to me yet about how to get the right woman in your life and start being at her cervix and pleasuring her, you can do so by clicking the red button in the upper right-hand corner at mountaintoppodcast.com, and you will be pointed to where you can schedule immediately to talk to me for 25 minutes for free. It's all there for you, as always, at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you guys again on the Mountaintop Podcast, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X and Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.